late, but for the first time today, we're going to try something. Not a little late, actually, like really late. We're going to try something new. Google G Suite is offering like
the professional hangouts or whatever.
Yeah, free for a while. It seems every organization is trying to make a penny off of COVID.
Yeah, like Teams is free also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, that's all of that is entirely altruistic, right? All of that is just for a good public service. It's kind of funny. There's a long Twitter thread from Slack CEO about just about the uptick of the number of Slack users. So, good morning. Good morning.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Fold.
Hey. So we're trying something new today. I was just telling Nuno the Enterprise edition of, I think it's called Enterprise, I don't know, of G Suite is free for a while, and so that's like the only difference I think between like Standard Edition and Enterprise or something is the fact that you can record Hangout Meet calls. So anyway, usually I'm having to fumble behind the scenes with a bunch of screen recording and that kind of thing. So.
Is it called Hangouts or is it called Meet?
Yeah, it's really confusing because there's a Hangout that was like the original product, and then I think when you pay for G Suite, then you get Hangouts Meet, or you get Meet. I don't know. Sometimes they just call it Meet. Sometimes they call it.
Let's see.
Anyway, guess we have stockpiled over here is some things that we were going to bring to KubeCon EU for. We've got a quadruple extra large for Kush, and Kush's says Rockstar on the back, so that was. No, actually, I don't mean to spoil it, but it kind of. Anyway, they came out okay.
Nice.
Some Meshery ones coming up. Nice. Okay. While I'm wasting time, I'll also take note that there's we have the Nuno Corsair Captain with us today.
Yeah, I had to change the name because I was in the Docker birthday party yesterday, live stream from Brett, and suddenly I was like, okay, I don't think they know Dars Nunix, so I just put like the name. No, it was good. It will have the replay. It was it had some great demos actually. That was really nice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't. Yep. I'm so busy here. I didn't even know what was going on until it was done. So. Fair enough. Actually, Nuno, that might be a general community topic to mention. I don't know if there was any point of interest there.
Yeah. So quickly, it was so Docker is turning 7. So there's two things they did now. It's in the past. It was yesterday. They did this Docker birthday party. 3 hours stream. They were like presentation on the roadmap first of Docker. Then there was the Docker desktop. It was kind of the same demo that we saw during WSL-Conf. The videos are still not out, by the way. So once they are out, I will reference them in the community call also, because Meshery did a small appearance there. Then there was the Docker GitHub action that they created. Then Docker and Kubernetes by Michael Irin, It was kind of nice to see just a quick how you can set up Kubernetes developer environments with Docker Desktop, like very fast and with VS Code connected to the Docker engine and the Kubernetes also a cluster. So it was really a nice demo, I would say, very instructive. Like Michael is like a teacher at Virginia Tech, if I'm not too much mistaken, and so the way of presenting was really, let's say, academic almost. So it was really nice to see. And last but not least, it was like Jenny came also, and they talk about several community community stories, how you actually met Docker, and what was the first experience with Docker. So it was overall quite nice, and actually that's the prelims normally for DockerCon that will also occur virtually next month, if I'm not too much mistaken, end of next month, I think, something like that, 26. It's a 2 days event, online event, or 1 day, I don't remember. And it will be like they ask for CFPs, is open until today. So if you have any Docker story to make, I encourage you, especially now. Like they said, there's two things that we need to know, which is kind of fine. Is like, first is pre-recorded your session, so they pass your session and you can answer the questions. So it's quite actually a good idea, and it takes off, of course, all the stress. Right? You don't have any crowd, you don't have anything. So the demos. And believe me, yesterday I was during this birthday party and I was looking about all the demos, for example, and what you did also during the Meshery and Istio or Linkerd demo that you did. Okay, it needed to maybe be shortened, so you will not explain what is Linkerd like you did and everything, like what is a service mesh and everything, but just a small amount of demo, like 10-15 minutes really, where you have your hands on and you say like, okay, now you go there, you go there, you go there, then it's definitively like up to, like you can explain like maybe how to get maybe a service mesh quite easily with Meshery inside Docker Desktop Kubernetes, for example. Why not? That could be one, right? So
no, wait, hold on. Let me take that note. Let's make sure we get that into the meeting minutes. That's
So I already posted Meshery. Okay, I'm not sure I will be taking, of course, but if I'm taking, I already posted the Docker app with Meshery. Okay, so it's more, okay, of course, it's concentrated on Docker app, how I got SSH working in Docker app, and then how I will deploy an application, and the application, of course, is Meshery. So
oh, nice. Okay, sorry, I was half joking about making sure we got down.
No. And I told like everything. I try to bring always, like, I'm not part of, let's say, that much communities, because at the end of the day, if you are part of too many, you don't contribute too much to all. It's like one small here, one small there. It's maybe not the case, right? So I prefer to let's say do some hard lifting on one or two communities, and now that I can bring also Meshery together with Lee, maybe to maybe a more point of view of user, how you get it to the users, then it's could be nice. Now exactly. So for the DockerCon, like I said, maybe the development, like I think the how we use Docker and Kubernetes somehow could be nice. How we leverage it to develop. How do you develop against the Docker and Kubernetes? Meshery CTL, it's a good example. Like, it's Docker behind the scenes, but it's like the purpose is to get Meshery working with the connectors. And then you have a Docker Compose, and especially now that they are so much on Docker Compose, it's really good. Like, I think it's the right time to promote even more Meshery CTL, I guess.
Nice. I'm just, yeah, there's a freebie idea out there. If anyone is considering submitting to DockerCon, and you'd like a review or some uplifting, or you'd like to co-present, so I'm game. Sounds like probably Nuno is. Maybe some others in the community are as well. I know Yogi Porla, I think he's on the call today. I suspect he's probably game. Having having given early instruction about Docker at Cisco about 6.5 years ago, I think he's game. Anyway, good. So welcome everyone to today's call. Good to see a variety of different faces. If you don't have access to the meeting minutes, please just request it. Just like this note says, like Meshery, meeting minutes are a community effort. So please type away. Kush just reminded us KubeCon EU is back. I think I got the dates correct here from memory. If I recall, it's scheduled over a weekend, part of a weekend.
Yeah, that changed from, wait, because...
It starts on the 12th.
12, right? Yeah.
Nice. Same location though, right? RAI Convention Center.
Yeah, RAI Amsterdam. Yeah.
Very good.
Let me Eeyore sent it to me, so I have the tweets and I have the link. Okay, the link is there now. Okay, good.
A couple of quick things, I think, just because not everyone that's on the call today was on the call last week, and so just very brief announcements. We spent a lot of time expanding and formalizing our relationship with HashiCorp, and there are a number of new issues open on the Meshery console adapter. And our hope is Nick Jackson, who has spent a lot of time in the community early on, would be able to come back and spend some time, in part because he's being asked by others at HashiCorp to do so. It would be fantastic to have him back. There are a couple of things that we'd opened up in context of that partnership that you know, what I'll try to do is maybe I've given, I think, a few of you kind of a peek at what that partnership looks like, and access to some slides. I'll see if I can't make those a bit more broadly available. There are a couple of first steps in improving Meshery's support for console that I think there are those that are in the community today that would be very successful in taking these challenges on and taking these issues on. There are others that I consider people here would be successful doing. It's just as HashiCorp goes to up their level of investment, they might be able to bring some focus on some of these other ones. The first two are really just the fact that when you deploy console today with Meshery, you're deploying the console 1.5, which was technically a point by which console wasn't really a service mesh, or kind of was, but like almost wasn't. And so point being is when people use Meshery to explore console today, they have a very bad experience, more or less, because it's such a dated version. I think we're on console 1.7 something now. As a few of the members of the community have been working with enhancing some of the adapters to support Helm deployments or deployments by Helm, we've got some reusable code that can be leveraged to move, to uplift the adapter, to deploy a later version of console, maybe to deploy it with Helm. The second issue is to console as a service mesh now has a sample app whereas it didn't a year ago when we first created the adapter. And so these two issues are kind of looking for volunteers. So think about those. We also said, I think last time, I think I had said that I just had gotten done reviewing and approving SMI's entrance into the CNCF. And so it is underway. There'll probably be some news about that soon. We also had a massive uptick in the number of Meshery stars last week, which was fantastic. A number of you had gone out and been very social about asking for additional stars. That's had a fantastic impact. We're now, I think it was like 60 something stars. We're closing in on the 300 star mark, which will allow Meshery to go into the CNCF landscape. And for those of you interested, there are a few of you who've been, you know what's funny is, since I'm talking all about last week's announcements, maybe I should move a couple of them up here. A few of you have been interested in chaos engineering and what's possible using a service mesh. Very early on in the project, we had created a repository called Meshery Monkey, understanding that might be an area of exploration. And over time, a few members have joined the community expressing interest in that area. And as a matter of fact, last week we had a few members of the Chaos Mesh project on this call introducing Chaos Mesh. And so they will give a formal presentation to me and others in the CNCF SIG network meeting. I think it's, what is it, in 2 weeks, I think. That meeting is open to anyone who wants to join. So if any of you want to come over and participate in the CNCF SIG network call, please do. That's the same call in which Meshery will ultimately be presented. And I'll likely be in discussion with some of you about helping represent Meshery in the CNCF. So,
when is that happening?
The Meshery one or the Chaos Mesh one?
The Meshery one.
Yeah. How do I best answer that? To say that ideally soon. There's nothing stopping it at this point from being proposed and with a high probability being adopted. It has the support of the CNCF TOC chair. It needs the support of 2 other TOC members, a couple of which have raised their hands saying they're interested and would likely support. I just haven't reviewed it with them privately. It's sort of in advance of it publicly going out. And there's nothing blocking progress there other than just finalizing the proposal and pushing it out. And so actually, Ant, let me maybe show you where the draft proposal is. Some eyes on that might be helpful. And to even participate in that process too might be a point of interest for you. So.
Sure, I'll be happy to.
Yeah, good. Here, let me grab that before I forget. But as a matter of fact, all of you have access to it out in the Meshery community team drive. There. It's called Meshery
Sandbox proposal. Yeah,
yeah.
right.
It is conspicuously named. So we'll put that somewhere, wherever it makes sense. Yeah, so good. On that note, yeah, go ahead.
So is Meshery Monkey kind of an alternative to GlueShot?
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess now that you say it, Meshery Monkey was a concept that we'd come up with before GlueShot. I've never actually looked at GlueShot, so I can imagine in principle it is, but I don't even know what GlueShot does. I mean,
neither do, like, beside the description. Haven't looked at it, haven't tried using it.
Yeah, that's funny because, yeah, it's ironic or coincidental because I just had a 2-hour call with Edith yesterday, or no, Wednesday. But no, we didn't talk about GlueShot. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So the concept here is a bit more around the notion that actually chaos mesh is, I think the fact that they named that, and I don't know if we've got any chaos mesh representatives on the call, because we certainly did last week, but that they have prominently given examples of doing chaos with network-centric use cases. And as such, I think they've been kind of categorized to be reviewed in the network SIG, in the CNCF. And as a consequence, too, we've considered that if we were to enhance Meshery with that type of capability, that it doesn't, if there's enough of those out there, we had Litmus, is it Litmus Chaos present on this community meeting as well, that we would leverage probably an existing project. And yeah, when that one came forth, then it has those networking examples. Yeah, it's a good. Thanks for calling that out, though. I didn't. Yeah, we weren't trying to step on toes. It was an original. If you go look at the repo, it was created way back when. Very good. Anyone else, before we get into some specific topics, I'm hoping a couple of folks might be able to present. Anyone else have some general announcements or things that they? Okay. One that is relatively maybe shorter in nature before hopefully Kanishkar and Naveen dig in. Kush, it is fantastic to see your smiling face. There were a couple of topics that you had that I thought maybe we could chat through here. It was a little bit ago, you inquired about community mailing lists. Great idea. We have actually, when we started the community, we had a mailing list, and then found that just starting from 0 people in Slack to 0 community members to 650 that we have today, that people gravitated to Slack. That doesn't mean that it isn't the right thing to revive 1 or maybe 2 mailing lists. Does anyone, Kush, do you want to speak to that a little bit, or does anyone feel like those would be a fantastic idea or a horrible idea? Or
the Meshery community is growing up. Like whenever we need to make some announcement, or we need to take some variety of opinions. Like when you discussed about using of Vegeta as a load tester. So if we had a community mailing list, we can involve the whole community into a discussion, which may give us the wide opinion of ideas that should we go for it or should we not.
nice. I'm taking notes. Yeah, which is essentially to say, hey, in a very good way, the community is large enough that a simple posting of a message in Slack isn't necessarily going to be seen. People are coming and going, but something that someone took time to write into an email will probably generally be seen, especially if it's a new topic in a mail thread. So on that, thinking aloud with you, sort of following in the same vein as maybe other projects, it strikes me that maybe there would be a couple of different lists, something, maybe a Meshery user, a Meshery dev, and maybe, I think when we first started, there was kind of just a community one. in part because there's just a lot. There are certainly Meshery specific things, the project specific things, and then we've got multiple projects going on. Meshery is the largest, and then we've got general community things. So maybe I'll put. Yeah, go ahead.
Since we are reviving the community mailing list again, so we can just go by community mailing list and Meshery developers mailing list, and later we can extend them to more if we think it is needed.
Nice. Anybody else have any thoughts there? You know, kind of coincidental, Kush, actually, the way that came out is, in fact, how our current meeting structure is, where there's sort of, you know, two calls a week. One's a development call, one's a community call.
Community.
Yeah. It is my hope that at some point, maybe the performance-centric work that's going on and the research that's going on there, that we would begin to break out into, or there would be enough going on there, we would break out into working groups, or that we might have a third meeting. So very good. Next topic, Kush, we investigated Netlify and its potential use maybe across the different Jekyll-based sites that we have.
Going for Netlify, we would be needing a server for Meshery. Like currently, whenever we run Meshery on the local, we usually do Meshery CTL start, which initiates the Meshery server, or we can initiate our own local server. But when we are going for Netlify is just used to host a UI platform. Like we can check the UI changes any PR is making, or what are some typos changes, some small flakes, or some new UI changes. For that, we will be needing a hosted cloud platform where the front end, the client side, can use it as a server side.
So could we use like something like Glitz service, or we could even go for Heroku?
We can host on Heroku, but Heroku dynos are quite paid. It may cost a lot.
Okay. So like right now, TensorFlow is mainly going with a lot of, they're hosting a lot of their applications on Glitz. So we could try Glitz, but I'm not sure whether they have proper support for Linux-based systems.
Even I'm not sure about that. How will the Go system will work on it?
Yeah.
It's quite new actually.
Nice. So it sounds like Dynamo.
I'm sorry. What kind of hosting are we discussing? The hosting for the Meshery.io website, or
No,
the
for
hosting
server.
of Meshery server, the provider UI, the provider server.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's actually a good point of clarification. I wonder if there are two topics being conflated, or maybe it's just me. So there's a general challenge with doing code review where, and there are a few startups that are focused on this kind of a problem already, which I think are interesting. But the general challenge is that, hey, as a reviewer of a PR, you not only look through the code, but then you're likely, or you hopefully will also maybe check out that PR, do a build, poke at it, kind of do a functional test, kind of a thing. It's like, wow, that's such like. Actually, there are a couple of companies that do this in a very old way for Java-based systems that make a pretty penny off of the fact that they're shaving a bunch of time off of developers having to sit there and wait for builds, and anyway, point is, every time that there's a PR, if you're performing that task, gosh, since you're able to run continuous integration at any sort of at any point in that Git flow, and we do, when someone submits a PR, we execute GitHub Actions and a few different workflows, and in there's a build done. Well, then as part of that build, like there's build artifacts. Hey, if that was deployed or available somewhere, it would and then a hyperlink was made available on the PR, boy, that'd be really convenient and easy to go, look at that point, the build for that PR. I think that, and so to do that, yeah, in order to have Meshery server deployed to a central kind of development sandbox, we would need probably just depending upon what the use case is, a nominal amount of horsepower. That's something that I think that I'm aware of a few different resources where we can get that, the community can get that funded for free. There's a second, there's a very similar, but I think slightly separate question, and that is that there are 3 kind of Jekyll static sites that the community maintains. So one of them is Meshery.io, and when someone, and it's kind of the same thing when someone makes a change there, how is that built, or can we facilitate the build of that and the hosting of that somewhere separately so that people can get. So Kush, I think that was when, if I recall correctly, that was where our line of thinking around Netlify.
Netlify or Zeit also. Zeit is also quite good in that.
Zeit provides less number of minutes per month. Netlify provides around double of Zeit now.
And so, good. I think that they're.
So basically, just let me understand. We're talking about spinning up an environment per pull request, so that the reviewer has an easier time checking out if things are working or not.
Yeah, actually, the reviewer can just redirect to the given link in the pull request, and he will be able to see a working Meshery with the changes made in the PR. So
Okay.
the reviewer won't have to check out the changes on the local and rebuild the complete platform to just see if the pull request is working right or not.
Okay. So have we tried to estimate how much, how many environments we would be needing to run simultaneously, or per week, anything like that? Because we have like a number of adapters, so for each pull request for each adapter we'll need an environment, right? Not
No,
only
actually,
for
for the
Meshery
start,
itself.
I was just planning to go for the UI build changes. Like, if there is any UI changes, like there are many of the UI pending PRs.
So we're only talking about UI changes. Okay.
Yeah, if it works well, then we can think more of it.
Actually, this is implemented in my college club. Let me share the link. We deploy on Netlify, and we also, like, for every pull request there is a test which can be which we can directly click on and check. Let me share it in the meeting minutes. I guess you can see this PR here. You can just go there and see, okay, deploy / Netlify deploy preview is ready. So it automatically like spins up, and you can see the changes here, and it is a deploy preview -140 is the pull request number, and .netlify.com. I guess this is what we are talking about, right, Kush?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you for that, Naveen. That's a perfect example. So during the as the site is built, then there's this very convenient operator of just being able to click to see a preview, basically having a remote preview of the site deployed, which shaves off time. Netlify is doing well in terms of some of the open source projects that have signed up with them. I think there's no doubt there's a few of those open source projects that you guys would recognize very much. They offer up some free capabilities for open source projects, or actually I think it's essentially more or less all of the capabilities, but limited to a certain number of builds a month. Of which, to Ant's point, is that's a good thing to evaluate. Like, hey, where's that line? What might that cost look like? I think for Netlify, it was either it either looked like it was going to be free for the project or negligible in terms of cost. And so we had gone about filing a request, and actually this is in a GitHub issue somewhere, but we filed a request for a Netlify account for the project. Netlify has reviewed our project and agreed. And so I think, Kush, it may be the case that, I mean, clearly it's the case that we haven't finalized that integration or that build. And that was more or less kind of my point of bringing it up today, was to ask if there are any blockers there, or that we don't, the thing that we're trying to get to really is that quick link that Naveen was just showing that we would do. Click on a quick link to do a preview. So, Kush, I think hopefully you've got the right access to Netlify to be able to explore there. Maybe come back, and it would be great if you've had time over this next week to test it out, maybe present what that looks like in the next community meeting.
I'll check it out on this weekend. I'll let you know.
Nice. Okay. And does that make sense? I guess for everybody else, does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I'd like to see how that works, because I had this impression that Netlify is only for hosting static websites.
You're right. So actually, we should just clarify that the thing about Meshery server and running that, I think that's a separate topic. I think you're totally right.
Yeah, so that is why, like, for that we can either go with Glitz, because I was just having a look right now at some of the Go servers that are being hosted on Glitch. So I mean, if you want, I could possibly give it a try.
What was it? Glitch?
Yeah.
Okay, haven't heard about that one.
Okay, fair enough. Very good. Well, we've got some meaty topics, two of which that I'm afraid we may not do enough justice to. So between Naveen and Kanishkar, you guys have been moving a couple of small mountains. Do either one of the two of you guys want to take the ball? Take the wheel? Take the ball. I spent too much time in WebEx.
I guess I don't have any demos, so I'll try to wrap it up fast so that Naveen gets time. So, yeah. So what? Okay. Okay. So, so who will go? I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Shall I go ahead?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. So. What I have been working on was, so currently Meshery and Meshery Cloud have been using session-based authentication system. Now that works fine, but the issue with that is sessions are good for web, but like browser. But now the issue is now we have Meshery CTL, which also interfaces with Meshery and with Meshery. So the thing is, even at places we want Meshery CTL also to be authenticated. We want to have some kind of authentication mechanism for even other kinds of clients other than the web client. So what we moved on was, what we realized was we should rather go for JSON web tokens instead of session-based authentication. So that's what we've been working on. So the thing was, initially we tried to implement the whole mechanism into the server, but the thing is, there are a lot of complications with, with having to write your own authorization server. Like, a server which generates tokens and signs tokens and things like that. Also, there are like a lot of cryptography, things involved. So there like key rotation and all those things. It gets hard when you do it manually. So we ended up using this project called as Hydra. So yeah, the Hydra project. So the diagram that Lee has put up is a sequence diagram which shows like the interaction. So okay, yeah. So shall I go ahead and explain it? I mean, should I explain it or? Hmm, yeah. Okay. So yeah. So the yeah. So the thing is, yeah, so the web client initially it sends a request to Meshery server, that I mean login request, which is forwarded to Meshery cloud. Then, which again further, so now the thing is earlier Meshery cloud was the only thing that was running in the server. Now we'll have to have an instance of Hydra also running, because Hydra takes care of like generating the JWT, or, I mean the token, or verifying the token and things like that. So the thing is, okay, so okay, so yeah, also another advantage of using JSON Web Tokens, that JWT, is that, so in the case of sessions, once a session is generated, it is stored as a cookie in the request. And the problem with that is, once a cookie expires, the user is not authorized anymore. So now the issue we face with that is, let's say that someone was running a very long performance test or something like that on Meshery, and what happens is, let's say, like while writing the test or something, the I mean the cookie expires. Then somewhere in between, the user has lost its, I mean their authentication rights. So in the case of using tokens, we have like something called as a refresh. We have like I mean two main types of tokens. One is an access token, one is a refresh token. So the access token is something that has a very small lifetime, and the refresh token has a very long lifetime. So so the thing is, in every request that Meshery, any client makes, it sends the access token. But let's say the access token expires, then what happens is the Meshery client can use a refresh token to get a new access token. So this is where, like, I mean, there's an advantage of using JSON Web Tokens rather than, I mean, using sessions. So yeah, I, yeah, so now, as of now, I think the login, user login is implemented. There are a few more things that have to be implemented, but hopefully by next community meeting, I mean, hopefully we can have it deployed also. And yeah, hopefully, I mean, yeah, there's not much work left. Hopefully it should be done. Uh, yeah, I guess that's it from my side.
Why are we going for an additional service for JWT authentication?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was trying to explain. The thing is, like managing keys and key rotation and all those things actually add a lot of complications. I mean, and keeping keys safe, and there are a lot of things that, I mean, like initially we implemented the, what do you call it, the token verification and everything into Meshery Cloud, but eventually we realized that I mean, generally keeping keys safe is something of high importance. So I don't think, I mean, yeah, that's why we felt that using a service which guarantees that is better than writing one whole large service ourselves for it.
We can rather use a JWT Go package, and where we are hosting the server, we can keep the credentials over there.
Yeah, that
There
we
are
tried that. Yeah, we tried that, but yeah, again, so we use a JWT package. So none of the package do any key management. We'll have to generate and manage the keys ourselves.
Do you try using Go JWT? Because I
Yeah,
have used
yeah,
in
yeah.
Heimdall.
The one by DJ. What's his name? I mean, I know the package. We actually were using Go.
It is given in the Go official documentation.
Yeah, we use that. But are you sure it does key management? Don't. I mean, I think you end up generating the keys and passing the keys to it, right?
Actually,
Using
I have used
OpenSSL.
it on my intern last year when I was
Yeah, yeah.
working on Project Heimdall, and it was going quite
Okay,
well,
could you provide a
increasing the
link to
services.
the thing? I'll check it out. If it does key management, then I think, yeah, we should, that should be fine.
So how I implemented JWT once was uh, within. I also encoded some random number with the data. So the data, like if there is data whatever I am storing, I used to store key as 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 or 10, some sort of that number. And whenever we used to spin up container, whenever it was deployed, these random X number of keys, which was the maximum limit of that key value, which we used to encode, it used to generate that many number of random strings, and those were used as keys. So what we used to do is, for every release, we used to like generate these set of keys. So for previous release, all user will lose their token, and it was expected, if it was a breaking release, we expected it to happen. But we can like do this. We can apply this solution also if we are looking for manual efforts, like have some random number encoded along with the data, and generate the maximum number of random strings, and use them as a key. Actually, I used it. I don't know, like it was quite easy in Node.js. I don't know how easier it would be in Golang.
No,
Like
what
it's
Naveen
just
said actually seems fine to me also. Like when I worked last year, we were using same kind of technique which he used to tell, which he just told. We used the hash and we used the random generated key with. Matlab we had a quite long function, but I implemented in Python, so it should not be that much difficult in going for Golang.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
but
Then
if
yeah.
you
I
have
mean, we
like
could look at.
worked on that, I don't think like if you have implemented most of it, I don't think it would be like worth your effort reverting those changes. But if we are still in that phase, we can go ahead with like manual.
Okay. Yeah, we'll, okay, yeah, I think then we'll discuss about this. I'll talk to you. The other thing is just asking, does it work for even asymmetric keys, like RSA keys, like your method? Because we are using a
Um,
public encryption algorithm. I
okay.
mean, you seem to be talking of generating a random string and then using it for encrypting, right? We are actually
Mhm.
but what we are trying to do is generate a public key and private key, then sign the tokens with the private key and expose the public keys so that Meshery can verify the token. So this is the reason key management comes into place, because now the thing is with these things, you have to rotate the keys once in a week, I guess. I think that's what, yeah, I think you'll have to rotate the keys once in a week or something. So
Hmm.
kind of, yeah, it gets
Okay.
complicated eventually. So that's why we went for Hydra.
Okay. Okay.
Like, I mean, once in a week,
Seems
we'll
fine.
have to generate a new key and we'll have to keep record of the previous keys so that the other tokens don't get invalidated. And yeah, there are like a lot of things, so that's why we went for Hydra, because initially I had implemented the whole thing without using Hydra, but we realized that I mean, this is a big like thing, so that's why we went to using Hydra rather than going with an implementation.
Okay. Seems fine to me. So I was talking about HS256 algorithm, which is like using only one secret key.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got it. It's a symmetric algorithm.
Hmm.
In that case, you can just generate random strings and use them as keys. But
Hmm. Yep.
in case of RSA, you have to generate a proper, I mean, key value. I mean, sorry, public private key pairs. So
Yeah.
JWT Go can take care of RSA and the key generation. I'm just reading its documentation.
can you
It's
send the
pretty
link
nice.
to the? Can you drop the link to it on the
Sure,
chat?
sure.
I'll check it out.
Just a moment.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the package that we were using before, and this is where I shifted from. I mean, this is what I was using, and then I went to Hydra. So I don't think it takes care of key generation. Are you sure that it takes care of key generation? I don't think so. Like, because I mean, most of the tutorials and most of the documentation, they used OpenSSL to generate RSA keys, and then they use that. Like you can see, they use key.pem file and I think key.pub.pem file. Like,
They have just written in their description. The library supports parsing, verification, and generation and signing of JWT.
yeah, they generate JWTs, not keys. I mean, you have to, I mean, key management is a whole different thing. And the keys are used to generate JWT. So basically what the package that you send does is you give it the key and some details, and it outputs a JWT. That's what happens.
We can discuss it further then.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it looks good to me though.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll anyways discuss it
For sure.
further. Yeah.
Uh,
I guess you can carry on if.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Yeah. It's it's a complicated thing. There are a bunch of use cases around, around generating the keys, refreshing the tokens, where you store the tokens, persisting that securely, facilitating on-prem things versus versus identity providers, and the persistence of those tokens offline, remotely. Yeah. There's a couple of, I was just chatting, there's a couple, both, I've had my teams use Hydra in the past, actually Hydra and Kratos. So there's some familiarity there. There's some, having proved that out with a much larger product, which is nice. That doesn't mean Hydra is the solution or the best, necessarily the best way to go. But it is nice that it's, that it is somewhat robust in what they've considered. Kush, it would be, as a point of interest, like it would be interesting to see where, if any, missing functionality in Go JWT is, like if it meets the needs, like the smaller the better, the less moving parts the better. There's a logical diagram that may be a point of interest to folks. I'll put it in the meeting minutes. There's a sequence diagram that Kanishkar has put together, and then a logical diagram as well. And there's the link to it. We've got a little less than 10 minutes left. Naveen, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if you want to talk to it today or postpone.
okay, I'll make it quick. So related to MeshSync, I posted, I guess, basic draft architecture diagram in the doc itself. So what we can do is, like, can you just open the diagram, please? I don't have access to it, like access to my laptop right now. Yeah.
Sure.
So in the diagram, like there are two clients majorly, Meshery CTL and Meshery REST API. So what MeshSync will do is, MeshSync should be able to look whether a service mesh is deployed or not, and whether it was deployed using Meshery or not, and like do basic fingerprinting and analysis of service meshes. So there are basically two what we say clients, Meshery CTL and Meshery app, uh, and REST API. So what they will do is they will contact a MeshSync, and MeshSync should at first look in the Cube API. So if Cube API does have the service mesh installed, it will fall back with that response. If it does not have it, if it cannot detect, then it can go with adapters, and every adapter can look for their own implementation. Like if it was not in Kubernetes, if it was in some other deployment, some other platform, or if it was in Kubernetes. So this is how basically I guess everything will work. So currently what we have implemented is I guess it was already implemented to get the version number of Istio and the service meshes we support. So we implemented to fetch the deployment related information. The complete deployment can be now fetched. I have added the sample response in the doc as well. So in the sample response, basically everything related to every service mesh would be there, and it would be an array. So a service mesh can be deployed in different namespaces that can have multiple deployments. So it will be an array. And similarly, I opened an issue to scan Prometheus and Grafana to like it is already implemented in the code, but it needs to be exposed by an API. So I guess if anyone wants to jump in, I will be happy to help. And yeah, I was able to make it in 5 minutes.
You took advantage of that. You cheated. Anyone have questions on what Naveen presented? Does anyone need an example of of the value that MeshSync provides, or kind of the importance to it, the importance of it to the project?
Yeah, actually, I had one more thing. We discussed for front end in the performance page. Currently, only version numbers are shown. Currently, only the presence of mesh can be seen. But what we can enhance is for every adapter and for every for every page we can detect, okay, these are the service meshes which are deployed and this is the deployment number, and somehow use this information in front end. Maybe when user clicks on Istio, the user should know, okay, we have already a deployed instance of this service mesh in this namespace. So like in Istio, like in any adapter page, here we can have, okay, this is deployed in this namespace and we have this deployment. So currently we are not leveraging that information, and installing Istio and deleting Istio, it doesn't look very much appealing to the user. He does not know, okay, where we are installing and where it is happening. So we can leverage that information too, and for every adapter and for every mesh. And similar thing can be done in the performance page. Where,
so this is a great this is a great example of like a very nominal way in which an early version of MeshSync has been taken advantage of, and that's the notion that in the system that I'm running currently, Istio is a service mesh that's deployed on the cluster that I'm connected to, and that this early version of MeshSync recognizes that, pulls out Istio from the alphabetized list, pulls it up to the top, and kind of puts an underscore to indicate to the user that, you know, these are the meshes that are present. And basically, MeshSync will drive a much better user experience pervasively across many of the user interfaces, like Naveen is saying. Another great example is like, well, actually in my environment, technically right now, there is a Grafana instance and a Prometheus instance that have been deployed with Istio, and Naveen has enhanced MeshSync to discover those and pull back some details about those. Right now, the current state is that the user interface needs to be enhanced to show people the fact that different instances of Grafana and Prometheus are available, and so that it can drive a much better user experience across many of the interfaces. So it's a really important piece of functionality. Well,
any questions related to MeshSync?
Kush, I'll call you out since you're here today. I think there was a little bit of an area of work that, if I recall, you were considering, and in part that touches up against, or part of it is with respect to MeshSync. And so hopefully this helps kind of reinforce the bigger picture about the value of some of that work. We are at the top of the hour. Did we miss anything that anyone needed to bring up today?
quickly, there was this discussion with ISCO during the week. So he wanted to contribute, and he arrived at some point that suddenly just did a Meshery make cloud, I think, or something like that. And from there, he was a bit blocked. He didn't know what were really the next steps, how he could contribute. He was contributing normally to the linker D, I think, or console. I don't remember, one of the two. And so he was like, okay, maybe the docs are just missing this part. Like, what is your contribution? To what will you contribute? So here is where you start, and here is potentially the next step. So he told that normally he will like amend or update the documentation.
Yeah. What did you say that was Aishan?
Aisuko, Japan.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's room for improvement there, because I think for the most part, the contributing.md discusses some technicals about how to build various components of the project, but there's room for improvement about really flushing that out. So.
Yeah, like onboarding kind of, depending on the area.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, no doubt. Moreover, I don't know if some of you might have met Chris Mazur, who's in the Slack channel. He and I were having a long discussion in the wee hour of one of these last mornings. He's in New Zealand. He's the organizer of Service Mesh Day, and he thinks very well of the community and of the people here. He's raised his hand to come over and help do some of that community management, and this is a good example of, I think, his line of thinking about helping grease the wheels for existing contributors and newcomers as well. One of my fears is that, I think last time we met, one of my fears is that, well, this is funny, tongue in cheek, is literally about grooming new captains, or like captains of Meshery, if you will. And by that I mean industry or community stewards, community maintainer, or various component maintainers. We announced a couple of folks have been promoted last week in terms of maintainership of the landscape, which was a fantastic, Gunjan and Ashish. First, I've been talking for a while about defining those roles, kind of the contributor ladder, if you will, and what some of the expectations about those roles are, and etc. There's a lot that we need to get done there in a relatively short time, because I know that for my part, as I wearing a maintainer hat, and for some of the rest of you who wear do that as well, and whether you sort of formally wear that, or you just do it. Many of you just do it as and when you see things, just like Nuno is calling out. As Meshery's popularity continues to climb, that we need to structure in a scalable way there. So time invested on those things now will pay dividends. Very good. Well, I guess nobody has to travel to go to work today. You can just turn around and start working. Yeah. Anyway, very, very good to see you all. I assume all of you are healthy, or at least you don't know that you're infected at the moment. So we'll live in blissful ignorance. Good. All right, fair enough. See all of you next week.
Bye all.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hello.